All right, well, good afternoon and welcome to the UP-wide broadband meeting. I'm Ryan Susi, Senior Planner with QPAD, the Central Planning Region of the UP. Co-hosting this event with me today are Wupperter, the Western UP Planning Region, Eastern UP Planning, Lake Superior Community Partnership, Invest UP, Upper Peninsula Michigan Works, and Connect Michigan. Together, we formed a coalition of partners in community, workforce, and economic development to present this big new opportunity coming out of the FCC's Rural Digital Opportunity Fund. Before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge what an incredible turnout we've had for this event, with over 110 registrants, which include local elected officials, administrative officials, service providers, economic developers, education institutions, state officials, road commissions, and healthcare leaders. We are very grateful to have your attention today. And a special thank you to our federal and state policymakers and staff on the call today. Thank you for attending State Representatives John DeMoose and Beau Lefebvre, as well as the offices of U.S. Senator Stabenow, U.S. Representative Jack Bergman, and State Senator Ed McBroom. Closing the connectivity divide in our rural region has been a high priority, and we're very fortunate to have your continued leadership. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items so you know how to participate in today's event. You're listening and using your speaker system by default. If you would prefer to join over the phone, just select telephone in the audio pane and the dial-in information will be displayed. You will have an opportunity to submit text questions to today's presenters by typing your questions into the question pane in the bottom right corner in your control panel. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation. We will collect these questions and address them during the Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. So first, I'm going to pass it off to Tom Stevenson, Community Technology Advisor with Connected Nation and our regional representative for the UP. Take it away, Tom.
Thank you. Thank you, Ryan. My name is Tom Stevenson. I'm the Community Technology Advisor for Northern Michigan. I'm working with the Connected Nation team here in Michigan, or a lot of you know us as the Connected Michigan team, Connected Michigan program. Excuse me. Next slide, please. So currently, since we've been working in the state for 11 years, for the past 11 years, a lot of you folks have been on this call today and this meeting. Actually, I worked with for the past 10 years. So we're constantly upgrading our program, and recently we've been hired by the Michigan Economic Development Corporation to assist the state and the state agencies in technical assistance and planning. We've been given 4 primary tasks. We are now the state's primary point of contact for broadband, and our jobs are to establish an online clearinghouse for broadband and technology resources. Another thing we're doing, we established and facilitated, a state-level task force to address the state's broadband challenges. I'll get into that in a minute. Provide technical assistance and guidance to communities and internet service providers through meetings, presentations, capacity building, and training, such as what we're doing today. And then on top of that, we've been also getting involved in conducting still our in-depth broadband community engagements. And I'll show you right now we've been tasked working with 8 multi-county regions across the state. Next slide, please. So here what we have is the Connecting Michigan Task Force. I can see today we've got a few members of those task force here on this call today. As you can see what the state has done, we've gathered a lot of the agencies, put them together, working together and collaborating on the broadband issues throughout the state of Michigan, hopefully to combine the resources and talent and expertise to move this subject forward and help close the digital divide. Next slide, please. So these are the 8 regions we're working with. I'm working with region 3, 4, 5, and 7. I'm here up in the UP, working currently right now with Luce, Mackinac, and Chippewa County. And our task is to, when necessary, work with those local communities on community engagement. Fortunately for me, with the Eastern UP, we did our Connected program several years ago, And that group is still using that technology action plan. So we've been able to step right into just working with the local providers and working on tasks and implementing programs that help expand broadband throughout that region, and as well as the UP. Next slide, please. So what brought us here today is discussion on the Digital Opportunity Fund, what we call RDOF 904 auction, phase one, RDOF phase one. The title changes around. But a couple quick facts on this. Originally, this program was $16 billion were offered for what we call 904 auction, but it was a very competitive auction at this time, and only $9.2 billion of the subsidy program has been turned out. So real quickly, to understand this is not a grant program, this is a subsidy program. And I won't get into the details of percentages, but typically this program only provides up to anywhere from 25 to 35, 40% of the actual bill cost. And the rest is handled. The rest of the burden of the cost of the build out is carried by the internet service provider. This program throughout the United States is going to be, as the current data is set right now at 5.2 million unserved homes and businesses. Now, the original data limits set for this was all homes and all businesses, areas that were not served by 25 megs down and 3 megs up. This is a very competitive auction. I know a lot of service providers, when they went into the FCC, said their standards were a little bit too low. Well, lo and behold, when the auction was all done with, almost 98% of the locations will receive speeds of 100 megs down and 20 megs up with 2 terabit of data caps on it. 85% of those locations will now be receiving gigabit speeds, which is under the FCC rules are going to be 1 gigabit down or 1,000 megs down, 500 megs up with 2 terabit of data caps. It's going to be a 6-year build out with a 10-year payment schedule. And as you can see right here, 40% of the build has to be done by year 3, 60 by year 4, 80% by year 5, and finish the rest in additional locations, all the stragglers by year 6. For the UP made out like a bandit. On this one here, I'll say over 44,000 locations will be served by this program, and with subsidies ranging around 1.7 or $171 million in subsidies. Now that's based on the original winnings, auction winnings that were the FCC put out on December 6th of 2020. Now the providers are going through what we call the long form process, and so that number may tweak a little bit up or a little bit down, but right now, as of the as my 3rd grade math works out, this is what we have right now based on that. There will be a phase 2 that will be $11.2 billion. Originally, that was going to be roughly around $4 billion, but the money that wasn't used in the phase 1 is now going to be poured into phase 2. But with the new chairwoman in charge of the FCC also launched what I call the Digital Opportunity Data Collection Data System. And so since that will be implemented here shortly, that will delay the next what is now called the 905 auction or phase 2 auction by at least 18 to 24 months. In addition to this, one of the things we're working with right now, and providers have pointed out even for the auction handle, because of the demand on the internet, which I would say during COVID, a lot of my providers have said roughly a 30% increase in the demand on the internet throughout, and this has put a big strain on both the material, on the supply side of material, and also labor shortage. And more recently, with all the new build outs, I'm also looking at a chokehold of permitting is becoming a problem right now. So again, we're trying to address those issues from a legislative point to the state. So anyway, these are some of the issues we have to work on that they might possibly delay some of these build outs. So next slide, please. So the Digital Opportunity Fund, a lot of folks know the data. This RDOF was used the famous FCC's 477 data, which is very questionable in a lot of cases. A lot of cases inaccurate. So they've launched a new Digital Opportunity Data Collection Program. This law was passed last, I believe, spring, but Congress failed to fund it. But recently, recently, some of the funding, I believe it was back in December, some of the funding came through to actually put this program together. So the chairman has decided that they're going to wait and launch this new program, which hopefully will collect a lot more granular, a lot more accurate data before they do any more funding, which kind of makes common sense for a lot of folks. The Federal Communications Commission, also the FCC, just recently sent out a link where folks can input their thoughts on share their thoughts or opinions on their current broadband service. So they're collecting that data from the field. I believe that came out on Monday or Tuesday. So this is the link to that. Next slide, please. Another thing that's happened we're looking at here, not only looking at service, one of the big issues out there is that affordability. So Congress did also pass what they call the FCC Emergency Broadband Benefit Program. It's a $3.2 billion federal initiative to help lower the cost of high-speed internet for those eligible households in the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. This benefit for those providers that right now the federal government's going to be using the existing Lifeline program, and I believe right now that the date for the providers to sign up is closing now, if it hasn't closed already. But basically, this benefit is going to help those that can't afford, have issues paying for broadband. Right now, $50 a month discount for broadband services, $75 a month discount for broadband service or households on tribal lands. Also, the providers will be able to offer a one-time discount of up to $100 stipend for a laptop, desktop computer, or tablet purchased through that participating provider. And also, this emergency broadband benefit is limited to one monthly service discount and one device discount per eligible household. Who's eligible? Those folks that are currently participating in the Lifeline program, and those receiving individuals or families are receiving benefits under the free and reduced priced school lunch program, or those who have experienced a sustainable loss of income during the COVID. And another one here, the last one here, is those that receive a federal Pell Grant in the current award year or meets eligibility criteria for a participating provider's existing low-income broadband program. Next, please. Next slide. There you go. The big hot topic last couple of weeks, we talked about the American Rescue Plan. My phone's been ringing off the hook with folks, not only providers, but also state officials, local officials asking how they can use this money. The American Rescue Program. Now, they have you can see here, I'm just listing out a lot of the funding for that is going to be held for broadband through the various programs. One of the things I'm excited about is the adjustment in the E-rate program, which will help out our schools and libraries. And also they'll start addressing this home connectivity issue. I noticed we have a lot of school representatives here on this for this presentation today. Another one here is the state and local physical recovery funds. A lot of it used to be used for economic recovery purposes. And some of the uses for this are going to be to hire or maintain essential workers, provide certain money for governmental services, water, sewer, and broadband. So and the last one's going to be the Homeowner Assistance Fund, which will mitigate financial hardships associated with the coronavirus pandemic, and includes qualified expenses include help pay the mortgage payments and notably the broadband service. I will say this, while a lot of people are asking a lot of questions right now, typically what happened is this legislation went on to the various agencies that'll be handling this funding, and they have 60 days to modify and come up with the guidelines on how to disperse this funding. So right now, I will say a lot of folks, while the details are kind of vague, be careful what you listen to, because a lot of people are filling in the blanks. and because of the lack of information. But as soon as that information comes out, we'll be supplying that to the community and through organizations like this. Next slide, please. And another thing looking at that other folks, broadband folks programs will be coming out is going to be the FCC telehealth program. Round 2 is coming out. That legislation, we'll see guidelines released on that here pretty soon of $250 million. The NTIA tribal connectivity grants of $1 billion. NTIA broadband infrastructure deployment grants of $300 million. And I'm stopping here because not only do we work with MEDC on the engagement, community engagement, but also the Connect Michigan program is currently administering the CMIC broadband grants. What we're hoping for is that this money will be allocated, be able to use to infuse more funds into that state broadband grant program. So right now, only 28 states, I believe, actually have a validated broadband grant program and also an updated broadband plan. So I know a lot of states right now are scrambling to develop that broadband plan and come up with that grant program. And finally, we have the NTIA Connecting Minority Communities pilot program of $285 million that are coming out. Again, guidelines and details to follow here shortly, we hope. Once more, next slide, please. And finally, one of the things we've done during the pandemic, and I just want to push this today, is that while a lot of folks don't have access to broadband, the state of Michigan early on has asked us to develop a map of all the hotspots in the state. And so up to date, we have about 670 hotspots listed. These are some of the ones in the state. We've had a lot of schools, a lot of libraries, some organizations have other nonprofit organizations that provide Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi, turn their data in. So if you've not participated in this program, please do so. It's a well worthwhile program. We've had several agencies talked about starting this. They found out we've done this. Some of the hospitals, telemedicine programs in the state started this. They found out this. So we're all participating. Everybody's turning their data in to keep it under one house. So next slide, please. So any other resources of information, I'm going to make this PowerPoint will be available. And so some of these are the websites here that folks can go to continue to keep up with all the actual broadband activities in the state of Michigan. Next slide, please. And again, I'll be on the panel to answer the questions. And so this is my information. Anybody needs to call me, feel free. With that, I'll turn it back over to Ryan.
Well, thank you very much, Tom, for that introduction. And next, we're going to welcome James H. Salter, president of Atlantic Engineering Group, to talk to us about his project. AEG is the winner of most of the census block groups through the RDOF auction here in the Upper Peninsula. James, take it away.
Thank you, Ryan, and apologies to the attendees. I'm having webcam trouble, so I'll just sort of be the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain that doesn't have any video. So yeah, guys, delighted to be with you. AEG, our company, is a company based in Atlanta, Georgia. I think you can tell I don't have a UP accent. We competed in the FCC RDOF auction, and we were successful in Michigan. And so I just wanted to sort of introduce that to you, introduce ourselves to you. We're really excited about becoming a friend to the UP. In my view, from what I have seen, not only is a large part of the geography in northern Michigan unserved for broadband, even where there is service, in a lot of cases, it's underserved by my definition of broadband. So not necessarily, mine doesn't equate to the FCC. I think if you have under a gigabit available to you, then you're underserved. And so we intend to do what we can to help change that in your community. So next slide, please. Next slide, please. So just a little bit about our company, Atlantic Engineering Group. What our day job is is we're a fiber optic contractor. So we design and build fiber optic networks and do it all over the country, actually all over the Western Hemisphere. And so 24 hours a day, we're building fiber. So we're all fiber all the time. We don't do any wireless. We don't do any copper or coax. We think that fiber is the right solution for the long haul for bringing adequate broadband to folks, and that's what we do. We've done 130 projects or so, 3 million homes or so, and so that's sort of our core company. And the next slide. And this is a picture of where we've designed and built these projects around the U.S. So you can see we're pretty geographically diverse. And I want to be clear, AEG doesn't own all these networks. We just built all of these networks. So network ownership is a relatively new thing for our company. We normally are working for someone else, a traditional service provider, or in a lot of cases, we're working for a municipal electric utility, like a Marquette, for example, that decides to build their own fiber network. We've been the guys that have helped them do that. Next slide, please. So here's a map of our RDOF subsidy grant winnings in Michigan. You can see that it takes up a lot of the geography of the Upper Peninsula, and we also won some in the Thumb. So we won something like 49,000 homes total that are unserved, which means that the incumbent service provider says that they can't supply 25 megabits down and 3 megabits up. So that's quite unserved. Next slide. Just a little more detail. We've sort of broken the winnings into what we're calling 3 markets. Just to be clear, a market for us is more like a build market, not a compete market. So the Western UP is about 25,000 of the homes, and we have our requirement for the grant subsidy money is that we have to build fiber in front of all of the houses. So in order to do that in the Western UP, we're going to have to build something like 3,400 miles of a fiber optic plant. Next slide. In the Eastern UP, another 15,000 homes and another 1,500 miles of plants. So you can just see in the UP, it's more like, total is 40,000 homes and about 5,000 miles of fiber that we're going to have to build. So it's quite a large construction project. And then with the next slide. And again, y'all are less interested in the Thumb, but we also won some in the Thumb area, about 8,000 homes, and that'll complete our RDOF Michigan builds. Next slide. So as Tom mentioned, the FCC pays out. This is sort of the barrier to entry for folks that decided to bid in an RDOF. They pay out the grant over 10 years. You couldn't. So kudos, by the way, to the legislators on this webinar. This wouldn't happen without some kind of grants. I mean, just like building rural roads or just like building rural electric was in the 30s, rural broadband is not going to happen without some kind of subsidies, because there's just no economic case for it unless you can pay down the incredibly high capital requirement to build these networks. I mean, I'm telling you that I've got to come to the UP and build 5,000 miles of fiber. 5,000 miles of fiber is not cheap to build. So the FCC pays out these grants over 10 years, but we're required to build it in 6 years or less. just to be clear about our intention in the UP, we don't. We're going to build it absolutely as fast as we can. We're not going to wait for the grant money. We're not even going to wait for the grant money to get started. We're going to get started now, using our own capital. And our intention is to have the entire UP built in about 3.5 years. Next slide. So sort of the provocative way for me to end the presentation is it makes sense. I mean, we're passionate about bringing broadband where there's a need, and obviously there are existing service providers in Michigan and in the UP, and candidly, we're sort of the outsider coming in, so we don't know precisely where the needs are. But our intention would be to build where the need is, not just the RDOF, not just the 40,000 RDOF homes. If there's other areas that that the community feels like they're underserved, we want to try to be the solution for those folks as well, because it just makes better sense for us to fill in all of the areas that that aren't part of RDOF if there's a need for improved broadband. So I'm just throwing that out as a general question, and I think the answer is going to be, yeah, there's other areas where we'd like to see improved broadband, and in a competitive telecom arena, it's sort of who gets there first has the advantage. Once you build a all fiber network to bring gigabit, and actually gigabit's not the end of it. Then an all fiber network will let you do 10 gigabits and 100 gigabits. And it's the only technology that'll allow that. There probably won't be two competitive all fiber networks in rural America. There'll probably only be one. So we want to go while we're there where we can. Next slide. So we'll have a significant presence in your community, both as a construction contractor and as an operator. So obviously on the construction side, our typical model is we send in some folks from corporate to be the managers of the build, but then we hire local and lots of local folks. To build 5,000 miles of fiber is going to take lots of folks, probably 500. And so between subcontractors and new W-2 employees, we will be employing quite a few people in the Upper Peninsula. And then once we get the network built, we become an ISP and an operator, and we'll have a permanent presence in multiple places. Again, because of the geography, you can't have one office in Marquette and serve the whole UP. You're going to have 6, 8, 10 offices, and we'll hire 100 or so people initially to help us run these networks and provide the kind of service that we intend to provide to folks. Next slide. So that's sort of it. Just ended on some pictures here, but we just can't emphasize enough how exciting this whole prospect is, and looking forward to springtime so we can begin in the UP. So we understand it's not. We're not used to only being able to build 8 months a year, but I'm hearing that's what we can expect. So our opinion is if we can only build 8 months a year, we better build a lot in those 8 months. So that's our intention, starting next month.
Great, thank you, James. It's a very informative presentation. So my name is Jeff Hagan. I'm the CEO with the Eastern UP Regional Planning and Development Commission. We've had several questions come in during the presentation. hopefully we'll get to most of them, but we did want to let everybody know that the questions that we can't get to, we plan to put out a question and answer document. Some of them we might need to think on a little bit more. So with that, I'm going to start with the first question for James. What role, if any, would the existing local internet service providers have in relation to your build out and implementation plans?
Well, I mean, we'll be an internet service provider as well. So in a sense, we'll be competitors with the existing local folks. If there's non-facilities based, meaning they don't own their own networks, but they're ISPs, then yes, there's there's an opportunity to talk about partnering if it's the ISP that owns a copper network or a wireless network or those types of things, then candidly, those will be competitors.
Okay, thank you. And so a question on housing for the workforce. So this is already pretty challenging in rural areas and something that we experience across the UP. So just a thought on considering reasonable distance for daily travel, affordability, and then kind of a transient workforce. So any thoughts that you would have on workforce housing or how you've approached that in past projects?
Yeah, my thoughts are I need y'all's help on that because I don't have a clue.
Figured you were going to say that. And then next question is, what challenges have you had with permitting in the past? And then what can local authorities or local officials do to ensure a smooth and consistent process for your project?
Yeah, so on a project of this scale, 5,000 miles, and we intend to build most of this underground, we're going to overwhelm the current permitting staff of all the regulatory agencies, and in a sense, we're going to be pushy. So one of the things that we love to see is sort of a modified permitting approach where we negotiate blanket permits. In other words, here's the specifications we have to meet. Here's the place in the right of way that we have to be. Those sorts of things, and rather than plan and profile of every foot of 5,000 miles of fiber. If we can give the regulatory agencies the confidence that we're going to do the right thing and we know what we're doing, then that's helpful. But and we've actually paid for, as part of a build cost, paid for supplemental staff for them, help pay for, because again, they don't want to go hire people permanently for what's a temporary project. Right. So those are the kinds of things that we try to.
Okay. Lots of questions rolling in. This is really good. So what do you envision that your workforce training needs might be in terms of what types of skills do you typically look for? Do you take advantage of internships or other certification programs?
We do. We have several, and we sort of have our own academy, for the training, our mantra has always been we want to take good people and make them into telecommunications people rather than taking telecommunications people and turning them into good people. I think that the training programs, there's all kinds of required training to do this type of work. OSHA, DOT, various technical certificates, and so we like working with any local tech schools as well to try to have them implement the types of training programs that we need into their curriculum.
Okay, great, thank you. A question here on coordination with upcoming planned construction projects. How can our collective group or anybody on our webinar today helped with facilitating this?
Yeah, I mean, things like joint trenching, and if I'm just saying, if the natural gas company, for example, is expanding their network, or the electric utilities going underground, or any of those kinds of things, we obviously want to try to help each other in that regard. In other states, I don't know Michigan well enough to have a hard comment, but in other states, all that coordination is done through the one call, or 811 system. And again, I apologize, I don't know what Michigan has relative to that, but that's a good way to do it.
Okay. And then next question is, how can K through 12 institutions partner with your initiative to further reach more needed homes?
Yeah, I mean, we think about that a lot. So effectively, the network that we'll be building is almost like a wide area network for the school system. And I don't mean serving the schools. I'm assuming that the schools are probably fairly well served today by various folks for the bandwidth to the school. But what the school needs is connectivity from the school to to all the kids' homes, and I think that our network will allow for that, because we're going in front of every home in that school district, most likely.
Okay. And then just a little bit on the build out. Do you envision the build out will be fiber, wireless, cellular, another technology? And then the kind of second part to that is, who will own it? Who will own and administer the system? Yeah,
well, first of all, it won't be anything but fiber. So okay, we're not doing any other technology other than fiber optics. So our network, and that's all the way to the internet. So we'll have, we won't even have cellular backhaul, they call it, that aggregates bandwidth. We'll hardwire it to the internet with fiber. So that's the first thing. And okay, we'll own the network, and we'll operate and administer the network.
Great, thank you. Okay, let's see. So question here is, how do we get on your radar to add our community to this build?
Just reach out to me personally. I'd love to hear from you. It's been really amazing, if I'm honest. There's not been any, as far as I know, there's not really been any press about us or us winning this money in the UP. But I've had, I mean, without exaggeration, I've had 100 homeowners in the Upper Peninsula contact me personally. I have no idea how they even know who I am, and are saying, "Hey, when you coming to my house?" So it's clear to me that the hunger for broadband is high in the area, and that's exciting for us.
Okay, and then do you have supply chain needs, and do you have concerns about any shortages?
Yeah, we have concerns about various materials that are needed for these networks. 2021 and 2022 will be the two largest years in history for building fiber optic networks in North America, not just in rural Michigan. So we won 50,000 homes out of 5 million that have got to be built. So that's going to stress labor, that's going to stress materials, it's going to stress everything.
Yep. Okay, and there's a few more here. Let's see. Running the main fiber optic lines is one thing. Connecting households is another. The last mile connecting of homes and businesses has been the major stumbling block of broadband. What's different with this project?
Well, one thing's different is the requirement for the grant money is that I'm at the end of everybody's driveway. So with fiber. So all I have to do is go up your driveway. And I know in rural Michigan, maybe a driveway is a long way, but it's you know, so we're building the last mile. That's candidly all we're doing.
Understood. The question here, do you have experience doing underground build-outs in extremely rock-filled environments? Have you done any geographic studies of our area?
Yeah, I have, and yes, we do have experience. Our largest job right now is in the Rockies, yes, we've heard about the Western UP, and we've never personally built in the Western UP, but we understand the difficulty, and it's possible that in some of the areas in the Western UP that just have that rock that can't be penetrated, that will have to go aerial for some portions of the network build. But our intention is to build everything underground until it's just cost prohibitive or impossible to build it underground.
Okay. Question here relating to tribal support. There are several Native American tribes across the UP and the area that you're going to be building. So have you identified anything for direct tribal support, hiring or contracting tribal businesses or minority set-asides, percentage of the workforce, or work done by tribal entities or communities?
Well, we want to be a good friend to tribal communities. I'll certainly say it that way. There's no federal procurement responsibilities to these grants, but our intention is to be inclusive everywhere we can, and so I think you could expect to see us using that kind of talent where it's available.
Okay, thank you. Could you also touch base on who Heron Broadband is?
Heron Broadband? Heron Broadband is a sort of made-up company that was the financing arm of our bid. So again, I mentioned to you that the money comes in over 10 years, but you got to spend it over, in our case, 4. So you're upside down on cash, a lot of cash out of pocket. So we've obviously got a financing partner, and that's what Heron Broadband was.
Okay.
They're not an operating broadband ISP or any of that. They're just basically a capital partner.
Okay, got it. A couple questions here. I'm going back up to the top for Tom Stevenson. Tom, is there a place to look up to see which providers are participating in the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program?
Yes, we as soon as the list, the FCC releases the list, we will be providing that to all the key governmental agencies and put it out on a website, state's website. So we'll advertise that as much as possible.
Okay.
So we'll probably even try to do a webinar on it, or add it into one of our webinars. So yes.
And then I guess this is kind of more of a comment, but targeted towards that topic on EBB, Tom, is recommend providers partner with schools on the emergency broadband benefit to procure computers or tablets.
Yeah, like I said, that's up to the provider. We're waiting for some of the guidelines on that, but a lot of the funding, everything else is going to go through the provider. So, so if somebody from one of the schools want to work with that provider, once that list is out, if we can, we'll help facilitate those conversations.
Okay. And then one more for you, Tom. Well, it's this question for MEDC or Connect Michigan. Are legislators or MEDC or DTMB endeavoring to eliminate restrictions on the state broadband program, CMIC, to allow local governments or educational organizations to participate in the state grant program and future ones administered through the state?
Okay, we've had this before. The CMIC grant program is law. So that's handled by the legislators, our state legislators and the governor's office. So they are regulating who can participate and the speed tiers and everything else. We've made recommendations that the legislators look at something like that, but again, they write the law, and we follow the rule of the law. So.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. How are we doing for time, Ryan?
Yeah, I think we are good. So we got another question here in green.
Oh, yep, I see it. So for the community and economic development team, what is the intended approach for making this information more widely available to the community in general?
So I'll take that one for the Central UP. Our approach is going to be sharing information on our website. We'll also have a newsletter that's going out announcing this program, also the emergency broadband benefit, and we'll be getting a lot of this information out and sharing updates as we kind of move along through AEG's process and sharing information that they want to share with us. So we'll be getting it out widely, and I'm assuming the other planning regions will be doing something kind of similar.
Yeah, this is Jeff from the Eastern UP. We have followed a similar approach and put information up on our website, and then we have a newsletter that goes out as well, and also social media. So, okay. You think how many more questions do you think we would have time for, Ryan? I want to be mindful of the time.
Yeah, it looks like we got at least a good 20 minutes worth of questions left. So anything you want to pick up from here is okay.
Okay, yep. So James, a question here that just popped up is, do you have a build schedule yet that's identified by zip code or some other method, and what might that look like? This might be premature, but
It's a little premature, but I will say this generally, that our build order is more going to be based around existing middle mile, they call it, the fiber, the long haul fiber that goes between cities, so that we can attach to that fiber and get to the internet. In other words, I don't want to go build 1,000 miles of fiber that doesn't have any way to take signal from the 1,000 miles of homes to the internet. So
right.
we're going to start sort of on the existing around the existing middle mile fiber.
Okay.
And we'll do it in multiple locations. Let's be clear about that.
Yeah,
we'll
right.
be working in the east and the west and the thumb all at the same time.
Yeah. So then, talking specifically about the subsidies, what does that have any impact on end user pricing models that you guys are running?
Well, not officially. What the requirement to the subsidy is that you can't price gouge. You've got to price it similarly to services that you would find in town. So we certainly don't intend to do that. With the subsidies, the economics are good for the network. So, we don't have to be greedy to make a good living and provide a good service.
Yep. And then another one for James. What determined the cutoff points of the areas you were looking to serve, and can we pay out of pocket to have it extended to us? So I guess that would be if it's not identified on the existing map of the areas that you bid on.
I just think the right approach to that. I hate the idea of somebody paying out of pocket. Hey, I'm going to give you $5,000 to bring it 2 more miles to my house. That I don't like that solution. I'd rather us just figure out a way to make that work, under a more traditional build scenario. So I think the first step ought to be just reach out. And again, we're real anxious for individuals and groups and cities to reach out to us and say, hey, we think there's a need here. We think there's a need here. We've got the capital to build. And we want to build where the demand is.
Okay. Question here on potential environmental issues. What do you see in terms of environmental issues?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if there's sensitive lands that we're going across underground, wetlands, whatever, there's environmental, permitting and such that you have to deal with. These things, fiber networks aren't inherently, a polluting kind of a thing. It's kind of minimal disturbance the way we intend to plow rural Michigan. It's almost like, the minute we get it in the ground, you don't even know we were there. So they're usually not extreme issues.
Okay, so let's see, moving through our list here. Is there a threshold of a number of, like, how many customers per mile that you would be needed to run the laterals? And I think I know the answer, but
Yeah, I mean, just round numbers. I'll train us all on the economics of this. In round numbers, it costs you about $30,000 a mile to build fiber. And if a person's if there's 10 houses, that's $3,000 a house. And so then you're saying, well, all right, if I'm charging them $50 a month, how long does it take to amortize that capital? And so that's how you're making your decision. Our threshold, I will say this, our threshold is much lower than sort of the traditional cable TV threshold, which, I've always heard 30 customers a mile. Ours is more like 10 customers a mile. This is without any kind of grant subsidies.
Mm-hmm. Right.
The RDOF that we're building, I mean, think about it. It's 40,000 homes and it's 5,000 miles of plant, so it's 8 customers a mile on average.
Right.
So with the subsidy, it works fine.
Okay, another question for you, James. Are you building a PON or active Ethernet network?
A PON network, yeah, a passive optical network.
Okay. What middle mile fiber providers are you working with, or would you plan to work with?
Well, I plan to work with everybody. We're not exactly sure what's there yet. We certainly are aware of 2 of the larger networks, Merit Networks and Peninsula Fiber Networks, but I know there's probably others as well. So that's part of our early engineering is to sort of investigate that and try to come to some terms with folks.
And so the next question is, as an existing ISP in the RDOF area, whom should we contact at AEG to cooperate with the transmission of our 1,000 plus members from their current wireless service to your planned fiber service?
For now, me. So if we want to send contact info for me, that would be helpful, I think.
Okay.
Love that idea, by the way.
So the next one looks like it talks about a fiber trunk line along US 2, and would you be able to attach to that trunk line to bring service to residents in the area?
I don't know. I don't know well enough. Again, if somebody would send me the particulars, I'll answer that directly.
Okay. And then does AEG have pricing set for their residential products? And if so, could you elaborate on any ballpark figures?
No, we don't have it set yet. Honestly, we don't even have the brand name set yet. So it won't be called AEG. It'll be called something else.
Okay.
And so it's a little early for that. We probably won't be able to serve the first customers until spring of 2022. So we need about a year head start to get fiber in the ground.
Okay. Let's see. I think we got to quite a few of the questions. I really appreciate James taking the time to go through these. There might be a couple that still come in. Like we said, we will get out a Q&A document so that we can try and make sure everyone has all the information as we move forward. So with that, I'm going to toss it back over to Ryan to wrap us up.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Tom and James and Jeff and everyone else for attending today, the UP-wide broadband meeting. And so if you have any other questions, please contact your respective regional planning partners. That's me and Jerry Worma and Jeff Hagan here. And we'll also include a final slide in our presentation that has our contact information. You'll also receive a follow-up email here within 24 to 48 hours with the presentation slides, a link to review the recording of today's webinar, and an important follow-up survey where we'll be asking questions about potential service areas. So on behalf of our community, economic development, and workforce development team and our panelists, thank you for joining us today. And I really hope you all have a great day.